Welcome to Construction Champions Podcast, where we are burning the house down and rebuilding it twice a week. I'm your host, Ron Nussbaum, and I am here to help you become the champion that you're meant to be. Along with our amazing guests along the way, we will provide you with the resources, the latest and greatest. You will sit down with disruptors in the construction industry. And my goal from day one has always been to change the mindset around the construction industry. No more where we let the 3% of bad apes dictate the entire reputation of. Welcome back, Construction Champions. I'm your host, Ron Nussbaum. I am the founder and CEO of BuilderComs, and I'm more of a facilitator. I think I'm going to completely ditch the host thing, because from the beginning when I started this, I'm just here to help facilitate conversations that need to happen to help us become better as an industry, to help change the mindset around the construction industry. That's what I really do. Like I say all the time, you guys don't show up for me. You show up for our amazing guests that we bring on, and the insights and the knowledge that they have to share with us. Today is no different. Mike, it is fantastic to have you here with us.
Thank you very much, Ron. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, before we dive into it, why don't you introduce yourself to all the construction champions listening out there?
Sure. So again, Mike Matalone. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I own two companies currently. One of them is my primary business, which is XP3 Talent. So at XP3 Talent, we specialize in helping contractors build high-performing teams that drive organizational success, which I'm sure we're going to dive into a little bit more. The other business is a newer business that I'm just starting, which is called Lake Anna Deck Solutions. So we are going to be a high-end premium deck builder here where I live in Virginia on Lake Anna. I'm partnering with a buddy of mine who's been a contractor for years here, and he approached me looking to grow his business, and I said, "Yeah, I'll do you one better." I said, "I'll partner with you, and we'll do it together." As we'll talk about a little bit, Ron. I've been helping contractors for the last probably really focused in the contracting world, probably 7 or 8 years, and helping them grow over that time from maybe, $1 million, 2, 3 million up to 10, 12, 15 million. One of them, took them from 60 to 100 million. So envious of the business model that the home improvement industry has for many years, and finally decided, okay, I want to do that too. So
it's hard when you're around it to not get in it. It takes everything I have to not start something up here where I'm at. And I have enough irons in the fire, but it's like you said, it's just, there's something about it that just pulls you in when you're around it. So I'm excited. I think going and building decks, I did some of that when I was up in Michigan, and we lived on a lake. We did some deck building and stuff. And I love it, man. That's amazing, man. Not already.
There's already decks or docks, but there's already a lot of dock builders here, but nobody was focused exclusively on high-end decks. So I decided that's why we're going to go there. And that's one of the things I've always helped my clients with. I said, if you really want to scale successfully, consistently, pick a niche, a specialty, and focus on that. Stop doing everything, because it's so much harder to scale that way. So,
you're starting out on this. Is going to be highly successful because you're speaking my language. You're speaking what we tell everybody on here to do all the time. You understand that, figure out what it is, and just go do that and do it at a high level.
Well, and the other part of it, as you know, Ron, is you don't have to create it. It's like, there's proven models in the construction industry of how to do this. And if you just implement those systems, processes, and as we'll talk about, the kind of the secret sauce we bring to the table is the people component, right? So if you understand how to do that, you almost can't fail, right? That's what got me into it. So.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm going to ask you the $1 million question, and that is, what makes a construction champion?
All right. So I've been thinking about this a little bit the last couple of days, anticipating you were going to ask me. So my answer is it depends on what you're doing, right? So if you're a tradesman, you're a carpenter, electrician, plumber, whatever, then the answer is you must achieve mastery in that trade to become a champion, right? Champions are the best of the best. So that means you need to know what it takes to excel. What we're talking about, obviously, is construction ownership, which is a little bit different, right? You don't need to be, for myself, I know how to build, but I'm not the best at it. But so starting this deck company, I'm not trying to be that. I partnered with a guy who is a master contractor. But my mastery is on the business operations, which includes the 5 pillars. And so the answer for a business owner to be a champion, you have to achieve mastery of the 5 business pillars. And that is people, number one, because if you're growing a company, right, as opposed to building yourself a job where you're doing the work and just busy as heck and don't have time to enjoy life because you're working 60 70 hours a week. You need to build a team of people. So the first pillar is people. Second pillar is leadership, right? So you got to understand how to become a leader. And that's probably, between the people and the leadership components are the two key aspects or areas of focus develop a champion mindset and mastery. The others are sales and marketing, operations and administration, and finance.
Mm.
And I also want to make sure I'm clear with this too, telling the audience that you don't need to become a master at all those things, but you have to understand the importance of each of those pillars and how they connect together and how they need to work together. And then what you need to be a master of is how to put the right people in the role in charge of each of those pillars. Right. So for me, that's what a champion is, somebody who has developed mastery in their profession.
I love it. And it's so, like you just said, like we don't have to become a master at each one of those,
Right.
but we do have to understand them. And I think that's where like people get hung up. And something that kept coming to my mind while you were talking there is some of the champions that we don't talk about that much
Yep.
are the coaches who are really like the business owners. You look at like the coaches that have won multiple championships, no matter where they're at. They have all these rings, and what were they really good at? They were really good at getting the right players on the team, and then figuring out how to get them to play well together. And
Exactly.
it's that's what you have to do as a business owner. Is you're like that super coach that can just step in an organization and win championships with what they have there and also bring in the right players to fit in with what they have. And you don't have to be the master, but everything you just listed off is stuff that you have to understand. People don't understand the vision if you don't understand what they're doing. You can't paint that picture for them.
By the way, have you interviewed Brian Gottlieb yet?
No, I don't think so.
Do you know who Brian is?
The name sounds very familiar.
All right. Well, I am going to make an introduction. Let me find his book here. I will make an introduction for you too, because you need to interview Brian. This is his book, which is on its way to being an all-time bestseller, Beyond the Hammer. So Brian just sold his companies. He had 3 different companies for 150 million, I believe it was. And Brian tells a story about, he says, yeah, when I first became a contractor and people would say, what do you do? It's, oh, I sell windows, siding, roofing, whatever it was. I'm a contractor, right? He says, but a few years after, he goes, I came to the realization I was really a sales and marketing company that just happened to sell home improvement services, right? um, he goes, but my real success, when I just went from that gradual climb to like, vertical almost, he goes, I realized I was really in the training and coaching industry. He goes, that was the business I was in. And again, we just happened to sell home improvement services. He goes, it's all about the team. It's all about the people. And if you need to be a champion of anything, if you want to build a company, then you need to focus on how to build that team because everything else happens around the team. And your capabilities of your organization are limited by the capacity of what the abilities of your people can produce.
Yeah, and that's just something we miss in the construction industry. It's like
Mhm.
I'm a firm believer is construction's no different than any other business. We just paint it like it is. Like because that's one of the mindset shifts that we talk about on here all the time that has to shift in the construction space is that it's not a construction business, it's a business that does construction. And
Yes.
all the same rules apply. Those, like you said, those five principles apply. When we
Yep.
look at the most successful businesses in the world, what they're doing can be done in construction. And I've watched it be done, and it's what makes highly successful construction businesses. And it's amazing that we overlook that. We just say, like, for some reason, we think it's different here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and on it, a lot of people I talk to, like, yeah, well, that's the hard part. The people part's so hard to do. It's hard to find good people because there just aren't any people that want to work anymore or have the ethics and whatever excuses they are now justifying and putting that blocker in their mind. And my new partner is a classic example. He said, I haven't been able to grow the company because I can't find people. Right. I said, dude, it's an art like everything else. You have to know how to do that, and I'll show it to you. So I helped them apply our system, in the first couple of days. Well, preference that too. He had spent like the last 4 months trying to hire some carpenters, right? He only even had like a couple of them apply. And the ones that apply, he said, yeah, weren't any good. Well, when we did it, right, and knowing how to write an ad to attract them and where to post it and things like that, I had like 15 people apply in the first 2 days. We interviewed about 7 of them and then came down to the problem. Okay, which ones are the best ones? And we were struggling between, was it this guy or this guy, which is the best scenario to be in, right?
Mhm.
And we got him hired. I also showed him how to train better, right? Being a training coaching company. And that's a key thing too, that when people are hiring, one of the mistakes they make is they are looking for that rock star A player person, right? But the reality and everything we do, Ron, is based in science and analytics. So data driven on everything we look at. So we know for a fact that probably of the world's working population, only about 20% are those natural A player rock stars, right? 60% are actually the B players, or what we like to call high potential people, right? So the reality is most likely that's what you're going to end up finding and hiring. But even if you're fortunate enough to find one of those A players, what you have to realize, everybody has to be trained on your system, your products, your way of doing things, right? So even if they work for a competitor down the street to do the same exact job, they still have to learn that. The faster people learn that, the faster they will become productive members of your team. So hence, going back to, you have to be a training and coaching company. You have to have achieved mastery around the people part and knowing how to hire, how to train, how to retain people.
Yeah, I like you said, what he told himself, and that's what I went down this road. I went through this personal development myself, where for years we have always had a hiring issue and a people issue in the construction industry. Everybody keeps going back to, oh, it's just the people. And you know what? When I finally realized, or when we finally realized, like, we were the problem as the company, and that's what needed to be fixed, we
Yep.
permanently fixed the people problem because it was a narrative and a mindset like anything. Like, if you let it live,
Yeah.
it will always be a problem. But once, like you said, you focus in, you do it the right way, you get somebody around you that understands how to do this, so then you can do it. You
Yep.
could solve the problem forever, but like, you have to then teach them. What I have found, and this might be a crazy statement, but that 20% of the A players, the rock stars, they're typically not the fits. Like, they're typically the people that do not come in and perform at the level that you want. When you're talking that the 80%, there's 60%, the B players that need that development that you can bring into your system. As long as you have a system and a culture that can develop them, they will be better than any A player long term. And that's just my personal experience. And no, I've
Yeah,
been through it a few times.
I've experienced some of that, but the other part is you have to also realize about those true A players. Um, Most of them are going to be short term with you, right? And the reason is because they have that same drive and ambition that you had when you started your company. Right? They're gonna like, I want to go start my own company. And if they see your system work really well, they're going to think, oh, I can take that and go do it myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, those people that are that good are working for large organizations, drawing $200,000-$300,000 a year salaries and, flying all over the world and whatever. So yeah, I mean, those people, if you're only focused on finding them, you're setting yourself up for failure. Focus on the reality, the 60%, the high potential people, and learn how to transform them. And what you have to transform them into, Ron, is passionate, collaborative company advocates. That is your first goal. So another mistake people make is, I hire a carpenter, I hire a marketing person, a project manager, whatever, and I need to train them for that job. No, the first thing you need to do is create a psychological connection between their brain and your company. And what I mean by that is your mission, your vision, and your values, which make up your culture, right? If you can connect them psychologically to that, where they are passionate, right, about coming to work every day because they believe in your mission and what your company is doing. They're excited about the future because they know what your vision is, what you're trying to grow and create, right? And they realize by helping you do that, there's growth opportunities for them within that. And they live and die by your core values. I mean, how they behave daily and make decisions and do things is based on those core values, which of course, this all means you have to go back and revisit maybe, do I have a good mission, vision, and core values that people can get passionate about? And even if you haven't, clearly defined them yet, which obviously step one is do that. And that's stuff we help our clients with, by the way. But then, if you just think about it, right? If you're an entrepreneurial contractor, you started a business, you even though you might have not have formalized the mission, vision, values, there's a reason you started that company. I want financial freedom. I want independence. I want to make more money. Maybe I just want to grow a successful company, whatever those things are. And you're passionate about that, right? And then, your vision, hey, I want to double the company, triple the company, or create this, or open multiple offices, or whatever it is, right? The point is it's your mission, your vision, your core values. So obviously you have a psychological connection as the owner. Therefore, you're willing to do whatever it takes to make that company succeed. And then people are always saying, well, why can't I get my employees to feel that same passion as me? Right? Well, because you don't know the formula of how to create that. You can create it. And by the way, it doesn't take giving them ownership of the company, right? It starts with just clearly define your mission, vision, and values so they're simple and easy to remember and meaningful. And then when you hire, talk about them in your hiring practices. When you onboard the first week, then you need to be talking about the mission, vision, values as the first thing and how important they are, and letting them know that they have to memorize them and live them, right? Then after those kinds of things, you start training them for the job you hired them for. But you got to have that psychological connection first.
Yeah, it's so important. That's why I think when I realized that we don't need all rock stars, because it's easier to sell what you're talking about to somebody that is thinking more long term, than like you said, that's always trying to progress. Somebody
Yep.
that's looking to be somewhere, that they want to have that career, they want to participate in a company. I'll tell you, when we changed all onboarding away from and made it so it wasn't my mind just went blank, but like it wasn't just department. It wasn't department dependent, and we brought it all together.
Yep.
And they would spend 2 weeks together learning every department throughout the company. And we onboarded, whether if you were answering the phone, doing installations, or out selling the projects, you spent the first 2 weeks with a training class to other, visiting all aspects, going over what we did, what do we stand, all of this stuff. We gave them homework. That was a complete game changer, because now we created a camaraderie throughout the company with people that were just coming on. And for like the production guys, that was unheard of. They had never, like, they're used to showing up on day one, getting a hammer and going to work.
Yep.
And you start to create this environment where, no, it's not like that. Like we go over what you said, the core values, the vision, what are we doing on mission here, and then work with them as a collective group. And it's such a game changer when you start doing stuff like that and you think about it. It's not out of the box. It's out of the box in the construction industry, but every other industry, this is just how they do it. And that's how we should do it here as well.
Yeah. Well, I want to touch on a couple of things you said that are key. Systems and processes, right? You have to have a system and a process for everything that you do if you want to scale consistently and successfully. Like, so think about it. If you're a siding contractor, roofing contractor, you don't go out and reinvent the wheel every time you go build, right? You follow a proven system of how to do it, right? Well, the same thing, you need to have a system and process for how you hire, how you train, how you onboard, how you do marketing, how you do finance, right? Everything. So and that's what I go back to the champion of mastery of the business pillars. You have to understand how all those pieces work together and how they're so critically important to achieving success. And the second thing I wanted to mention was our structured hiring and onboarding program that we teach our clients is just 3 days. And by the way, for like even a laborer or entry level installer, you can even shorten it to a day or two. But ideally, everyone else goes through at least a 3-day program, starting with the mission, vision, values. Then it goes to what we call the project journey. How do leads come into the business? How do we sell the jobs? How do, the handoff to production, and how do we build? And then, finance, customer service. So that's kind of the project journey. And what you're doing is in like an hour. And again, you're not teaching them how to do all those things. You're saying, hey, this is how things work in the company, right? So part of that psychological connection, you as the owner understand hopefully all those pieces, right? Or working towards getting better at them at least. But then if you can get all your employees to understand that, it becomes much more than just a job that you hired them to go make money. And the last piece I want to tell you is a little quick study with one of our clients. So it was a remodeling company up in New Hampshire. And we had helped them hire a project manager, salesperson, a lead carpenter, and a full-time estimator, right? All 4 of them started the same day, went through this 3-day program. At the end of the 3-day, each day, we asked them, all of them, 2 questions. Hey, what did we do well today so we can keep doing that in the future, for other new hires, right? And letting them know you value and appreciate their opinions, right? Second is, what ideas do you have of how we can make this even better, right? So does the session need more time, less time, maybe some visuals, right? Whatever suggestions they might have. And it's important to let them know, this isn't negative feedback. We really value your opinions, which, by the way, telling new employees that on day one goes a long way to creating loyalty and retention. But anyway, we asked those 4 people, right? The same thing. And the first guy that spoke up, to your point, was actually the carpenter, right? He said, look, he goes, I've been a carpenter for 25 years, worked for probably a dozen companies over that time. I thought this was going to be like every other company I went to. I'd come in the office, fill out some HR paperwork, get shuffled off in the field, start, framing. He says, the fact that you kept me here all day, treated me exactly the same as everybody else, right? He goes, by the way, all the other companies I worked for, I never knew anybody other than the HR person and the people in the field. He goes, I've already met so many employees today that work here and understand how all this stuff comes together. He goes, I called my wife at lunch and told her I found my last job. Right? So when you do it properly, that's what you're looking to do. And by the way, what I'm describing, Ron, if you're not familiar, there's a thing called discretionary effort. So there's been tons of studies by the Gallup organization, McKinsey, and other big consulting firms, and we've even done our own internal stuff. But they've discovered that the average employee only puts in about 40 to 60% of their capabilities, right? Think about that. So that means they have another 40 to 60% that they choose whether or not they're going to put in that capacity, right? And if you understand how to cultivate that psychological connection and how to onboard properly like that, then you can tap into the rest of that and you can literally double your productivity with the existing people you have, right? If you can tap into that discretionary effort. Because as the owner, when I described, right, they're given all that discretionary effort and more. Well, if you think what you could accomplish, if you get everybody, and I know you're a former Marine, right? Or once a Marine, always a Marine. uh, right. But the same thing. They don't just teach you how to do the job. They create a psychological connection to the Marine Corps. Right. That's some of the first things you learn in boot camp and stuff. And that drives everything else that you do. And for the rest of your life, whether you're serving or not, you are a Marine and connected to that organization. Well, that's what you got to do the same thing. And I don't care if it's construction business, any business, your ability to succeed will go up significantly by tapping into that piece.
Yeah. And I think you bring up something so important there when you're talking about like that carpenter meeting everybody, having a clear understanding. That's one of the things we lack with people in the construct. Like people just don't know what's going on. When you're talking about walking through the project from lead to close a project, most people only know what they do in that.
Exactly.
They don't understand everything else. And when they don't understand everything else, all people do is point fingers. All right, oh, it's this person's fault for this or that. But they don't understand exactly like what actually has to happen if you're the installer for you to actually be installing that job. Like
Right.
there's a lot, and you have to teach people that. And most of the time, they've never been taught that.
Exactly. And what you're talking about is teaching collaboration and communication. Well, if you don't introduce them to the other people, like classic one in home improvement, right, is sales against production, right?
With the big silos, the
Yeah,
trading silos.
exactly right. And the salespeople are, telling the production people, you guys wouldn't even have jobs if we weren't out here selling them, right? And the production people are like, well, if you guys would stop making promises we can't deliver on, our jobs would be a lot easier and we'd be more successful. But the reason that happens, right, Ron, is because they don't really understand what each other do and how that contributes to their success. And so again, when we say in the first 3 days of onboarding, it's not training the sales guy how to do production or the production guy how to do sales. It's just introducing the two of them to help them get to know each other first on a personal level, right? Like, why do you love working here? What did you do beforehand? Get to know them a little bit, right? What do you do when you're not working? What kind of hobbies, passions do you have? Find some synergy. Then, go into, well, as a project manager, here's what my job is, right? And here's the important things you need to know as a salesperson to work collaborative with me. And vice versa, right? When you're hiring the production guys, you have them train with the sales guys and stuff. Maybe attend a sales meeting, go on a ride along, right? So they build that relationship and understand what each other does and why it's so important that they work as a team. And a classic example I like to give is, are you familiar with Window Nation, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're probably one of the top 5 window contractors in the country now. So I worked for him as their chief talent officer in 16 and 17, and utilizing this similar concept, right, of being able to teach them prior to us me implementing our system there. They've been in business 9 years, already doing about 63 million, and they ran all their salespeople through a 2-week boot camp. They would teach them product knowledge about Windows. They would teach them a one call close 10-step process, right? And by the way, Window Nation, talk about champions, mastery, they were probably some of the best at it. At the time, they had 120, 30 salespeople who had a company close average of 57%, right? So they were clearly very good at that. They were also experts, mastery, and champions at generating sales leads, because if you have that many salespeople, you got to feed them the leads, right? So what they weren't good at was just recognizing that they were actually people and that they need to be part of a team. So they had one trainer who did the 2-week boot camp, and that's all they taught them. So when we applied our system, we didn't do anything, by the way, about teaching them product knowledge or how to sell. They clearly already had that down. We taught them how to train, how to create a learning experience. Even before that, we taught them how to hire. And this is another tip that I like to share out with everybody is when you're hiring, you need to look for two key things, foremost above everything. Are they smart enough to learn what you have to teach them? And are they coachable? Which are two separate things, right? You could be the smartest guy in the world, but if you're a know-it-all, you're not going to listen. So through the interview process, you need to key in on those two things among others, but those are key. Then with that, knowing that they can learn, they're coachable, your ability to train just went up by 50%, right? But then instead of just one trainer, we would have different people come in. And what we started with was the marketing team. We brought them in, and the marketing team said, "Hey, this is who I am. This is why I love working here. A little about me personally. This is what my job is here at Window Nation, and what I do to support you as a sales rep, right, and getting you those leads." And they went through and they explained, "Hey, we realize that some leads are going to be better than others, but you need to understand that we put the same effort and the same money into every lead we generate, right?" So what we found by educating them and helping them build relationships with the marketing team, as one example, the complaints about the shitty leads went away. They now had a greater appreciation for what their teammates were doing to help them succeed, right? So, and then we did the same thing with the installers and the PMs. We sent them out in the field for a day and go watch a couple installs, work with these guys, learn what they do, build a relationship. So the PM said, "Hey, so if you run into this situation, here's my phone. Call me. Let's discuss it so you sell something that's a win-win for both of us." So those kinds of things are which make a world of difference in how you go about, onboarding and getting people productive faster.
Absolutely, man. I love it. I absolutely love what you're talking about. I've been there, lived in that world, had to figure all that stuff out without having the help of somebody like you, which makes it a lot easier. Which brings me to
Yep.
well, I like to dive kind of into what you do, so I have a better understanding. Our listeners have a better understanding. Is this like you come in and do it for them, or you teach them how to do it so they have it forever? What does engaging with Mike look like?
Yeah, good question. Thank you, Ron. So what we did is we created what we call the XP3 Talent System. So it is a system for contractors to learn how to make better hires, right? Following a structured process that's based on science and analytics versus gut feel. I like this person, I don't like this person, which has nothing to do with them being successful or not. We teach them how to onboard and, as I said earlier, transform them into passionate, collaborative company advocates. And we teach you how to do performance management, which is all about the retention piece. How do you keep people motivated, focused, and performing and working as a team? So that's what the XP3 Talent System is as its core. It's a system to help contractors build teams who can produce consistent results. Excuse me, 3 ways that we work with companies. We have a recruiting division. So for clients that just looking for help, they think they got everything else figured out, but they just need help with hiring, then we have recruiting services that we can help with there. And we filled every role from laborers to, company presidents and, and everything in between. The bulk of what we probably help with is project managers, salespeople, marketing, and finance folks, right? Our flagship program is called Talent Mastery, right? And it goes back to your question, what makes a champion? Well, you learn mastery of doing something. So the way we do that is we have a program over 90 days. We will help you to implement the full XP3 Talent System. And by the way, we also have a software platform that has all kinds of tools in there to help hire, train, and retain better. So we help you to implement it and learn how to use all the tools in the first 90 days so that then from month 4 and beyond, you can learn the mastery part of it. Just get better and better as you do it with our training and ongoing coaching support. Okay. And it's so effective And we've had such great success with it that we just started offering a 100% money back guarantee. So if you don't see measurable results in the first 90 days, then you can ask for a full refund, no questions asked.
Mm.
So, so that's our flagship program. And then the third one is for companies that kind of want to do it themselves, right? They've already got it kind of figured out and said, look, I just need your software and tools. So then they can just license that. And even with the mastery program, ultimately our goal is to teach you how to do it yourself. And then you just drop back to just licensing the tools. And then when you need us to do any additional training coaching, then you can implement that at that time. So that's what we do at XP3 Talent.
You meet them wherever they are.
Yep. Yep.
But the goal is always to get them to where they can do it themselves.
Exactly. Well, and then I guess here, so a little plug. So I just wrote the second version of Hire, Train, Retain that just came out about a week ago. The back behind me was the first one that came out in 2019. The difference is this one is real short, simple, and I wrote it actually as a self-implementation training manual. So you could, in essence, read this book, if you're a good self-learner, and then just use our software and implement most of the stuff there. You get it. You don't even need our software technically. I mean, before I had the software, we did everything on, Word docs, Excel. Just going to take you a lot more time and effort to create that, but the instructions are in there how to do all that. So that's a good way for people to get started too, is get a copy of the book.
I love it. I just think, like, when you talk about a lot of where people think they are, I mean, I'll get into it in my finer thoughts, but a lot of times people aren't there. Like, they're not. They do need a little bit more hand-holding than what they typically think. And if you're hiring somebody to do the recruiting for you, I just believe that you better have somebody evaluate what's going to happen after that, because it's not an inexpensive deal to have somebody go recruit and bring people into your company. And if you're not set up to do what we talked about this entire episode with that person, once they get there, you're just burning money.
Yeah. Yep. Well, go back to Win the Nation. When I first met with the two owners in June of 2016, and they said between January to June, they had hired about 230 people and turned over 170 of them. Think about the cost of that, right? It's in the millions. They were just bleeding out the bottom. As good as they were at selling, they weren't, putting the money on the bottom line, which is another lesson that most contractors need to understand. It doesn't matter what you're doing at the top. It's what you take home at the end of the day. Right. So they were bleeding and said, can you fix it? And I said, yeah. I said, we're going to implement the XP3 Talent system. I'm going to train all your managers on how to achieve mastery at doing this, that you'll be able to continue this, guys, on your own, just using the system. And probably the proof of the pudding that go back to the boot camp, right? So the first boot camp we did, we put 18 people in it and graduated 17 of them. Their prior 9 years of running 2 or 3 boot camps a year, the most they ever graduated was 50%. But the real proof in the pudding was week 3, when they went back to their respective offices and started running leads. The first 30 days in the field, or 7 weeks on the job, those 17 reps sold $1.5 million in windows, which almost doubled what they'd ever done in the past, right? We were able to open up the Pittsburgh office in February of 17. We had set a goal of 5 million for the year. We had achieved 5 million by July, in the first 5-6 months. So the system works when you play it. And by the way, another key element, a year later, of those 17 reps that graduated and went through, 16 of them were still with the company. So,
I mean, that's the number that matters right there.
Exactly. Right.
Not only really sounds like you're definitely unlocking that 40 to 60% more of what people can do. I love it, man. You're doing great things.
Thank you.
For everybody.
And by the way, Ron, on that note, that's why I started this debt company. I'm like, okay, I've been helping other people. I want to apply what I teach and do it myself. And that's my pure motivation for starting this company, is just to build a successful organization to model to other people and say, this is exactly how you do it.
I love it. And like I said, you just get that itch being around it. When you know it, it's not it's not rocket science. It's just you have to be willing to do it and stick to it and have the discipline to do that.
No, but there is science involved in it.
Yeah, no, there is
Rocket
science.
science.
Like, because we're not going to space.
Behavioral science.
Yeah, we're just not going to space here.
No.
And the great thing is that we got people like you that have went through the science and understand it, in that it's not like we don't ever have to learn, like try to go out and learn all the stuff that you have learned.
Exactly. Just
Resources.
and that'll, by the way, and that's part of our name XP3. You know, the X represents Excelsior, which is Latin for ever upward, to achieve more. The 3 is the psychology and the science behind everything we do. So if you're not aware, the average human being can learn, retain, and apply 3 things easily. That's why if you look around the world, things are done in 3s, right? The Father, Son, Holy Ghost. You know, the Olympics have 3 medals. In geometry, the most stable pattern is a triangle, which is why we chose the triangle for our logo. So, you know, in business, right, we rank people, ABC players, sales, hot, warm, cold leads, right? So, you know, when you read marketing, when you're reading, hey, here's the top 3 things you need to know about X, right? That's all done on purpose because of the psychology behind it, and the simplicity. So if you keep things to 3 things at a time, it becomes easier for people to learn. And everything that we do, we teach in 3s for that purpose, to help people absorb only what they need to know in that particular area to be successful.
Awesome, man. I love it. And that's I would have never put all that together with the name.
Yeah, by the way, the one I left out the P, right? So the P is in the middle of XP3 because it's the central focus of what we do, which is people, right? So it's all about the people.
I love it, man. So for everybody listening, if they wanted to connect with you, learn more about what you do, where's the best places to do that?
All right. Well, one, like I said, you can go on Amazon and order the book, Hire, Train, Retain, 2nd edition. Don't get the first one. I think there's some used copies still out there, but this one's a much simpler, better, much better read. At 2 is obviously you want to talk to me and you know, and explore how we might help you. You know, and always happy to just give free advice to any contractors. It's my passion. Obviously, hopefully that's coming through. They can email me at mike@xp3talent.com. So it's XP and the number 3 and then the word talent.com. Go visit our website, which is xp3talent.com. Pretty much everything that we do and how it's done is on there. You can learn tons of stuff there and read the case studies I've talked about and more, and sample some of the tools and different things that are on there. So those are 3 different ways they can learn more.
Awesome, Mike. Well, thank you for taking the time and being on the show today.
Well, Ron, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. It's been a true pleasure.
Awesome. All right, construction champions, another episode in the bag, where I kind of touched on where I was going to go with this earlier in the episode. But when you're making an investment in your business, you need to think about what is the outcomes from this, and can you back those up? I know you might be listening thinking, oh, I got everything together, I might just need Mike to help me do some recruiting.
Yeah.
I would challenge that thought process. You know, I'm a challenger of thought processes, period. But when you're making an investment, you want to make sure that you're not wasting that investment.
Right.
You want to make sure that it can come to fruition. So if we're looking at recruiting people, we want to make sure that we can support them, that we can bring them on and follow through, not just turn them over.
Yep.
That is one of the mindsets around. So people is not a numbers game.
No.
Leads are a numbers game. People are not. It's not. We can't treat recruiting and retention in a way that, oh, well, if we have X amount of people, it's going to end up to this, and then we end up here. That's not how this works. It's the wrong it's the wrong mindset to have around it. You have to build an organization where people want to be at and where they're committed to. And by putting systems in place, like Mike is talking about, you create a mindset around that for them that you just can't duplicate willy-nilly out there just doing whatever you want to do. So construction champions, until next time, be the champion you're meant to be.